We have learned previously that our social knowledge could actually help us develop schema in the world. And our schema could be helpful for us in judging or responding to other people. In many cases, our schema could be appropriate because it gives us a way to somehow immediately deal with things. Because schemas can, we rely on our schema, especially with when we are dealing with uh, certain new situations. However, our schema could also give us certain expectations, and this could lead to biases if we are not thinking critically. And it could mean biases with our judgment for ourselves and for others as well. So specific for this slide, we will be learning how our expectation can be helpful for us and could sometimes be unhelpful, and how our expectation could be accurate at some point and at some point could be inaccurate. So first on our list, the good thing or the good part about social cognitions or our ability to think about our behavior, our thinking, and our ability to think about and predicting other people's behavior could sometimes process automatically. Now, this is what we call automatic cognition. It refers to thinking that occurs out of our awareness, quickly and without taking much effort. So it is like operating without much thought or effort. Example, when we like to think about certain things, we do it in a way that we don't necessarily tend to require much cognitive effort because we've been doing this, and this is what we call routine. So automatic cognition are like routine things that we do. Example, when we back then before the quarantine happened, we ride for some, no many for some siguro or still riding jeep, no. If you have car, good thing. But for some who are riding jeeps, no, uh, we just we don't necessarily think about mo mo sud ta kung saan nato pagsud sa jeep. No, we don't think about that because this is like automatic cognition, automatic processes kay kapara na to musud ta dali-dali pag sa mapakong pag sa jeep, di ba? So these are the things that we don't necessarily think about. Another thing is that your daily routine. So before, no, you it could be whatever ways you're doing, but when you wake up, no, you go to the bathroom, you take a shower, you brush your teeth, you eat, and then you go to school. So these are like automatic routine things, and you don't necessarily think about dapat ba ko maligo or manot brush ko? Because we don't necessarily think about these things, no, because there are like they just like come out of us like naturally, and this could be very helpful for us to be up to still be functional in our day-to-day activities. However, the opposite of automatic cognition is what we call controlled cognition. This is when we deliberately size up and think about something. This is requires effort, no? This is the time when we have a time, no, and the motivation to think about things carefully. We may engage on them thoughtfully, and that is how controlled cognition is like. For example, if we have problems, we when we really sit down on our problems and think about them critically, what will be our first move, then that is controlled cognition. But sometimes if we have minor problems, we do not necessarily think about them. Sometimes we just do ay kanila akong buhaton oy and kanila akong buhaton and let that thing just be. No, that is automatic cognition. At some point, automatic cognition is helpful. At some point, it is not. Just like assimilation, automatic cognition could have positive things. It could also mean negative. So when we mean positive automatic cognition, these are the things that help us to be more efficient. When we mean efficient, mas paspas ta. Kay dili naman ta magunahuna because sometimes thinking a lot requires effort and energy, and it might slow us down. So automatic cognition could be a very a way for us to really be effective, not effective, but efficient, mas paspas. But it could also mean negatively if we just do our day-to-day thing out of automatic cognition. Example with our schema. No? When we do not think critically, we might immediately stereotype people. No, inaana man na siya, oy. Regular atong sa una o nga mga kuan that is automatic cognition. Example, when we meet Chinese people, I know no majority of us may have not a good relationship with China or somehow attitude of liking or disliking Chinese people. That's up to you. If you have friends, I have friends, Chinese friends, but this is not about them. This is just an example, no? I've heard in Facebook no nga, kita si Chinese na gitay may kamo kawan man sila cold dalam man sila virus and ba and these are remarks out of automatic cognition, meaning we do not necessarily think about what we were saying, we just say it according to how we really feel, no? So kind of automatic, pero sometimes when we are conscious about what we are saying, no, we are doing controlled cognition because we are thinking this might affect their feelings, we might hurt their feelings rather, and this might not be not Chinese people are like that. So it could be it is like the activities when you do controlled cognition. Now on the other hand, priming or is actually a technique in which information is temporarily brought into memory through exposure to situational events. Example, when we do priming, like before a thing can become automatic, sometimes it become first controlled cognition. And when we do these things over time and we are primed over time, this become part of our automatic cognition. An example for those people that are somehow working or like student assistants, there are like processes nga for the first time maglisod ka, di ba? Unsaon gali ni? Unsaon gali nako pagbuhat? Kani dapat mao gid ni unang nimong i-click ha para kahibaw ka i-click nimo na ana na yung mga options. So maka-remember ka na niya tanan. Basta i-click lang na. So the process of kanilang imong i-click maka-remember na kana tanan is a process of priming, no? Because when you click at that thing, I was once a student assistant before. So if kato akong i-click, maka-remember ako kung sa sunod nga process. So that is priming. This is like an initial step for me to know unsa akong dapat buhaton. So kana siya. And over time, no, at first, no, maglisod ko dahil kay process, no, for a short period of time, I was a NAS. So kanang maglisod ko kuan kay dahil kay mga process, but over time, naanad na lang ko, and over time din ako kinahanglan ang priming, din ako kinahanglan i-click to kay over time ako namang nakatunan. And because of that, what I used to think about effortfully, think about deliberately, became part of my automatic cognition. So, mao na, and that is also the reason why kanang mga hanas na kayo ng mga workers, even if we say nga hanas na kayo na sila, they still sometimes commit mistakes. Kaya nga naman, ang ilahang ginabuhat kay tungod anad na kay sila naa sila yung mga ma-miss out, no, na kanina sila yung mga kanang dili kaayo perfect kay hanas na kay sila ba mura na lag nilag ilang gi kuan automatic dinis na mag-think amo na kung buhaton kani like pareha na mga production worker mas kay sila sometimes na sila miss out. But if you're a first timer, critical kay ka, di ba? Kung sakto ba kayo mo ibuhat tarong gyud ko ni dapat nindot kini pagpilo dapat perfect. So mao na nga when we are doing almost all the time controlled cognition, medyo dugay pa ta, mas low ta. And how does these things relate to our expectations? When we do not think critically, and that means we are just operated by our automatic cognition, sometimes it creates biases. And sometimes we are always when we deliberately size up things, meaning nag-think critically lagi ta, pero we skip some details, meaning nag-think critically ta, pero we only try to find those information that confirms our expectations, that could still lead to biases. And that is what we are going to learn on the next slide. So speaking of how we use our expectations can also influence our social cognition. First in our list is cognitive accessibility, or when we are trying to overemphasize information that are more accessible to us. So some schemas and attitudes are actually more accessible than others. So when we overemphasize this more accessible information, we might lead to a automatic cognition, wherein we just think about it non-critically because it is more accessible to us, or we just immediately think about them because we are primed that these are just the information that we often encounter. For example, we may think a lot about our new haircut because it is important to us. So that is example of cognitive accessibility. We just love our hair, and then we just think about our hair, but we didn't think about other aspects of things, no? And that is cognitive accessibility, just thinking too much on the things that are more accessible to us. It could also mean thinking about shoes alone. No, you always love shoes. You just think about shoes. No, it's okay for you not to have a new clothes, but a pair of shoes would be fine. So that is cognitive accessibility. The second on our list on how expectations can influence social cognition is social salience. Social salience could be a positive thing, could also mean a negative thing. So these are like some stimuli, such as those that are unusual, colorful, or moving, grab our attention. Whatever that is somehow unique in the social situation, it gets our attention. So it could mean positive or it could mean negatively, because some things that grab our attention in a social situation could influence our judgment. As an example, we only base our judgment on a single unusual event and ignore hundreds of other events that are more usual. And this is when we heard the news about shark attacks on the beach, and tomorrow you are going to go to the beach and you are afraid to swim already because you just heard that there were you heard in the news that there were shark attacks, and because that information was very grabbing, no, in your attention, you think about it and it somehow made or clouded your judgment. It could also mean other things, like a certain politician did something really good and all the people just praised that politician without knowing that that certain politician actually have a lot of corruption or draft and corruption issues. So that social salience, because that part is only the highlight, we tend to forget other aspects. That somehow it clouded our judgment because we only look at a single event, and we somehow forget and ignore hundreds of information. So that could be it. And this is very common in many adolescent stage, wherein when people are dressing differently, we would say, oh, that person is weird, or that person, I don't like to be associated with that person, even though they do not get to know the person more deeply. Because sometimes when you get to know the person more deeply, you would say, "Hala, I was wrong. I thought you were like this. You were strict, you were weird, but you were actually friendly, approachable, you're funny even." So these are the effect of social salience when we do not think critically. So if we are only basing our information on automatic cognition. Third on our list is representativeness or representatives heuristics. It is the tendency of us to make judgments according to how well the event matches our expectation. So one example for this is after a coin has come up head many times, no, in a row, we think, sunod anak kay bao ko tail na set. And because basing on the information, it is it is based on what the majority of the population is like. So that's why we call representativeness. So unsa ang kadaghanan sa population, that would likely be the result as well. As an example, a lot of people are saying that iPhone is better because a lot of people you've seen in social media are posting iPhones. And these people are like celebrities that make us think, hala ba nindot gid kay ang iPhone, no? So, nindot gid kay siya. Now, even if there could be other possible best phones out there. So this is the representative heuristics based on what the majority or the large population you believed is somehow might be thinking as well. So that is representative heuristics based on the large population. So the fourth on our list is availability heuristics. So this is a very easy one, no? Things that come to our mind easily tend to be seen more common. So, kung unsa ang naa sa atong huna, dali ma-access sa atong huna, magtuot ta nga mao gyud na, mao na sakto. Example, we may overestimate the crime statistics in our own area because these crimes are so easy to recall. Because these are the things that we often hear in news, no? Kadagag patay sa news. Uy, daga na unsa man ning kalibutan na, uy, sa social media na unsa naman ni, uy. Pero we forget that there's also good things happening. But sometimes availability heuristics is so much more highlighting those things that are very common without really knowing that there could other things di ay nga naapod pero not being highlighted. One thing in particular is like how the news are covering a lot of mortality deaths, no, a mortality rate of COVID, that we are very scared of COVID. Uh, that we somehow overestimate that tula kadagan nga namatay without really understanding that there are really also a lot that have recovered as well. No, so kana siya. That is availability heuristic. But to give you rather a very concrete example, because this is social psychology, I am sharing to you examples that I've noticed online for the past couple of months in the quarantine. So, first on our list is this image. No, the image, no, na ani siya. This is a movie. If you've watched this, no, ano siya. Kulang talaga sahod ko. Kulang? Magasto ka lang talaga. Milk tea lang yon, Lino, milk tea. My God, Jade, wag every day. What do you think is this meme, no? So Jade was somehow thinking about milk tea because milk tea all the time, okay? Moment ang more accessible sa iya, ha? So this is what we call cognitive accessibility. We think about things, overthink about these things because these are very accessible to our cognitive. So overthinking is a process of too much accessibility to our cognitive aspect. So meme that siya for cognitive accessibility. What do you think? How about this image? No? There is this guy who sent text, I love you, I love you, you're a B, you know? I love you, I love you, I love you. And then the girl replied, no, bitch, no? And then the boy replied, theory confirmed. No matter how many times they say I love you to a woman, she will always see the bad things. But what do you think it is? No? Highlighting what is very attention grabbing is an example of salience. So it's like social salience. It's like something that is happening in a social situation, and that is what only grabs your attention, and you tend to ignore now what is happening around. So the ignore na niya I love you, yung na-highlight ang bitch no word. This is, I know this is a very exaggerated example, but it is likely how salience operates, not exaggerating and only highlighting what is attention grabbing. Third example is this. No, I've seen this posting, no, a lot in social media. No, the fuckboy starter pack. No, na car, na braces, no report card na F with jogger pants. Is that how you call that? And with some shoes, na sports shoes. And what are these? No, these are example of representative heuristics. Now, representative heuristics are like, these are like schemas that we have ba? No nga. Our schema could lead to stereotype, but before it become a stereotype, it first created some representativeness in us. No, inani kasagana basta makita kag brace nga ano, kabantay ko ba kasagana mga fuckboy kay mga mag-brace, mga naisakyanan, may nana mo sige ana gyud na sila, no, so naa kay inana nga stereotype, and it start first with the representative heuristics that you are using, no, automatically, meaning non-critically. Another example, no, kanang mga kanang mga squammy girls. I've seen that posting. I don't know how what does it mean, but they say that it's like a jeje sort of stuff, no? Na posting ay mga ani nga mga outfit kay mga kuan na. And we're actually little did these people know they're actually stereotyping these people because not everyone who wear braces are fuckboy. Not everyone who have that kind of car are fuckboy. Not everyone who failed, no, are fuckboy. Not everyone wearing that kind of clothing are these people. But because we have this, we've encountered siguro no in their experiences nga naging anak sila, so they would think that maugid na ang best illustration for a person like that, and that could create stereotype, no? So things like that. This is an example of representative heuristics. And lastly, what is this? No, na siya gi-comment dire gahig ulo. Unya picture dayon sa mga naglangoy. This is the during quarantine on May 29. This is an example of availability heuristics, no? For a fact that the government just told Cebuano mga gahit mas nag-uloy. And it actually could have a very strong psychological, social, psychological impact towards Cebuanos because this will never be erased. People just somehow confirmed their biases against Cebuano, mga gahit ginagulo mga Cebuano. Even though we are not all of us. Example, ato makita diri na naglangoy sila pero di ba kita tanan nga to beach, di ba? Di man kita tanan nagduwa, no? Pero na ang na-highlight dira is what is available in the news. No, gaya gani mga ulo ang mga Cebuano, yung sa quarantine nagtinguan gihapon. Pero everyone, majority as I think majority or not really majority, but there are also people who are following the quarantine rules. This is the fault of availability heuristics when you try to make certain conclusions without thinking critically. And as a social psychology practitioner, or you who will be soon to be practitioners of psychology, you have to think critically, okay? And try to assess certain posts in social media and not be led into this automatic cognition that no, that things are just are and basing maulang gina siya, but we just no, as I've said, social psychology is a field which is the first line to criticize. No, criticize in a good way society and societal issues, but is the last one to make judgment because social psychology is just trying to understand why these things happen without judging them. No, but just understanding them and not judging them, rather create ways on how it could be corrected. So can you see? Yeah. So that would be for our first set of how expectation could influence our social cognition. So our second set is here. First on the list is anchoring and judgment. So although we try to adjust our judgments away from them, our decisions are overly based on things that are most highly accessible in our memory. So how does anchoring different from cognitive accessibility? So cognitive accessibility is whatever information that is more accessible to us. For anchoring, we based our decision on the first information that we get. That is anchoring. Example, what is accessible to your memory that is more accessible, that is cognitive accessibility. Okay? Ay ka-confuse. But anchoring is different. Unsa ang accessible sa imong memory, mao imong basihan sa imong next move. Mao na ang anchoring plus adjustment. Okay? You based your decision sa first what is accessible to your memory and then try to adjust it according to your first move. So example for that is we may buy more of a product when it is advertised as a single item. Example, we buy stuff when we know that is often uh, flashed on TVs or on screen. That is how advertising works. It is associational learning. Kaya pero minato makit ano nga toothpaste galing Colgate gid pero ni ang asa news mo na mo kaingon na lang gid ta nga palitaw yang ko Colgate no ana ba. So that is how we base our decisions based on anchoring. Another example is that this another example for this is kung wala magalit Colgate, close up. Kaya naman, because of the anchoring and adjustment, unsa ang kakompetensya sa Colgate man permit, close up man. Kung wala may Colgate, ang wala may Colgate dito, na dito happy. So may mga brands ito, may Sensodyne, no? Himalayas, no? O close up. Pero per may kakompetensya sa Colgate kay close up, may mo gi-adjust ang imuhang cognitive bank, no? Cognitive bank of information. Colgate na ako kay murag mga idol-dol. Ba? So, things like that. So that is how you anchor your decisions based on what is accessible more in your memory and try to adjust in case some are not available in a given situation. Another example that I will be sharing is Coke. No, you want to drink soft drinks. Ang permi good permi ma-available because of the news, and not the news but advertisement and people sharing. Lamig gid ang Coke basta bunaw, so palit kag Coke, yung wala may Coke. Mana ka Sprite lang kay kuan man ko kanang kaon man ko pampahilis. So, things like that, di ba? So, wag ganay scientific basis good no, but that is anchoring and adjustment. And second, our list is counterfactual thinking. Now, these are another form of overthinking. Like cognitive accessibility, when we think too much of what is more accessible. Counterfactual thinking is thinking about the alternative reality of that. So we may replay events as such as they turn out differently. So especially when only minor changes in events leading up to then make a difference. Example is when we feel particularly bad about events that might not have occurred, if only small changes might have prevented them. This is counterfactual thinking. Counters, yeah, because this is counterproductive. Meaning, when you think about the next possible that could have beens and the what ifs, it will still do not change the reality. Mana ni kasus may pag ako na lang to give akong effort ni ada. No? I might have not lose the one that got away. No? But even how much we think about these things, no, these are not productive. These are just counterproductive and counterfactual because this will never happen unless you would really start to do something about it. Pero these are somehow a waste of our efforts and energy in our cognitive, for a fact that it might make us feel bad about certain situation, and it makes us just uh, regret a lot of things, no? So it would just make us in general feel bad about ourselves. So dapat mo ganito, mo ni mga what ifs, what if in ani could have been, it could have been like this, no? So things like that. So third on our list is false consensus bias. So this is the tendency to see other people as similar to us or similar to ours. We believe that pero pareharam good may ginahon. Nagot tanang psychology major, mga wa man ay libog. No, we have false consensus bias. No, but the fact is that di man tanan actually. No, but somehow we are taught that as psychology major, we should be plug and play. We should be prepared of any social situation. But we cannot necessarily say nga tanang social psychology major way libog, no? And we cannot immediately say that tanang social psychology major are open-minded, 'di ba? But that is somehow the schema that other people put on us because again, sorry, not I should not be using the word majority, but all, no, all. They like false consensus bias of believing all psychology major are what dili libog. All psychology major kay open-minded. But not everyone, no, not also psychology majors are open-minded. Not all psychology major are away libog, no. But siguro majority of us rather are somehow open-minded. Majority of us are plug and play people. Like we whatever is in our plate, whatever situation we are in, we just go with the flow with it. So that is just majority, could be majority of us, but not necessarily all of us. So that is false consensus bias. That we believe that everyone we see are just like us. An example for that is we are surprised when other people have different political opinions or values. No? Example, no? para sa Dilawan, magtuo sila na matigid ang government, no? And that the government did not change anything, no? This is a counter argument against the DDS supporters. On the other hand, the DDS supporters believe that the government has really changed over time compared when it was the Dilawan who actually administered the government. It is again away from any political color. I am just somehow elaborating this and making this as an example of how social psychology and psychology itself is really working in every situation that we are in. So that is a false consensus bias, no, thinking to believe that people are all like this, no, and this is a false consensus bias as well. That all DDS supporters are like this, or all the allowance supporters are like this. And lastly, overconfidence. We tend to have more confidence in our skills, abilities, and judgment than it is objectively warranted. No, meaning, ano gid tay ana kanang high lang gid kita sa tong believe sa tong self. There's nothing wrong about that, but self-esteem is different from overconfidence. No, when we trust our abilities and know that we can do it, that is a good self-esteem. No, but overconfidence is like an inflated sense of self, wherein we believe that we are tough and we are unbreakable and we cannot be undestructible. Na? Miratag, di kita makuan o di kita mapildi, anak ba? And this could mean of us being so confident that we tend to make mistakes na no one. Example, eyewitnesses are often extremely confident with that their identifications are accurate, but their overconfidence tend to prove otherwise because majority of eyewitnesses somehow when there are lineups no of similar faces, their confidence level actually starts to deplete, causing them to make erroneous suspect identification. So kana siya. And now I am going to share to you things that I have somehow uh, somehow just in my newsfeed, which I have just seen in my newsfeed, which is very applicable to these cognitive processes that is affecting our social cognition. So first on our list of image is this one. No, we own the Philippines. No, on May 19, we'll prove it. No to Bongbong Marcos vice president. This is with again without any political color. But what I'm saying is that we know what happened about the martial law. We know what Marcos did to our to the Filipinos back then. No, because I was not there. I was not alive back then during that martial law. But we know for a fact that Bongbong Marcos is different, has a different personality sa iyang papa. And iyang papa is different from Bongbong Marcos. But because we are Filipino, sometimes we tend to say nga kung ano ang puno, mao ba? Kung ano ang puno siya ang bunga, no? So we have this strong automatic cognition that we only try to assimilate things and we do not accept that some people are just quite different. An example for that is Pacquiao and his son, no? Which has somehow gained as well bashers that he is just privileged to somehow plug his artistic expression only because of his privileged name as Pacquiao. But if he could have not been Pacquiao, he could have not somehow get to that kind of level. But because of their family, na sila kuan, no, na sila inana nga resources, no. But they also fail to somehow see that the son Pacquiao is different from the father Pacquiao, and they're not the same thing. And we cannot just immediately say that they have same personality, but somehow we, as humans, no, we cannot really try to get that away from us because, as what I've said, our schema is strongly embedded in us. So that's why it's very difficult to accommodate new information, but rather we simply assimilate. Like this image here is a concrete example of anchoring. We based our decision, never again, no, on our experiences in the past. It could be even relationship. Never again. Okay, in the past relationship, you have a very difficult and a worst breakup ever, and you're very afraid to fall in love again. Maka, never again. So you anchor your decision about love in your from your previous relationship. Just like this, your voting decision based on what you have experienced. So this is, and again, without any political color, this is just to elaborate how social, or how cognitive processes rather affects social influence. Next is this image, no? What stated in here, I got this image from YouTube. Higit pa sana sa Amerika ang Pilipinas ngayon. Ana yun, no? Kung si Marcos pa ang hero. But these people who are saying these things are those people who did not experience the martial law and have little understanding about martial law. But although we know that Marcus did a lot of things, we cannot take away the fact that he also did a lot of hideous things as well. It might not necessarily be towards himself, but it could be towards what happened during the time. And this is an example of counterfactual thinking. What could have been if Marcos was still the president? Oh, it could mean siguro progress in the Philippines, but it could mean a lot of killings. It could also mean a lot of restrictions. Inana ba? Or what could happen if we are still under Spain? I've seen that on Facebook. And and sometimes they say it could have been that we have a better structural features here, but you cannot take away the fact that our Philippine heroes did all their best just to free ourselves from this colonial uh, invaders. No, like what happened if we are still under American colonization. No, but we don't know. We don't actually know, and it's very counterproductive because this what ifs and could have beens could is not helpful, and we have to understand about what we can rather do and face as a present moment and be focused with it. The next thing is this one. Oh, you've heard this. I'm pretty sure you've read a lot of news about this, scattering all over social media. ABS-CBN shutdown. Yes or no? Nakamamili ka. It's a yes or no. And this is actually a false consensus bias. What is that? We believe that majority of people would say yes, no? Dang tao man oy nga yes, oy dapat i-shutdown ang kuan eh kanang ABS-CBN. Oy, di ko ganahan nga na kabantay ka ng ABS-CBN mga kuan man na singin ana. And we believe that it was just right to shut down a network. No, but there are also other people who believe otherwise, that it's not good to shut down. So mauna nga we should not push our beliefs automatically, like push these beliefs deep down to the throat of these individuals, because these individuals do not automatically just accept our belief because they also have one. And false consensus bias is understanding that what we think could also be what other people think, but it's not. No, because we are again different people, different individuals. And finally, this one. No, if you know Dino, this is again not against Dino. It is related to his statement. Cebu City is one of the most prepared cities in the entire country. Entire country. We are the most prepared. But if we base it on the situation of Cebu City right now, we are the longest city under quarantine, and we are one of the highest city with high rates of COVID. So where is the most preparedness in that part? And that is what we call overconfidence. Overconfidence can actually cloud our judgment in our next move, making us more complacent of what could be or what might happen. So these are some of the examples that probably you have uh, seen and noticed in our society right now. So if you are thinking like a social psychologist, you would probably take notice of these statements and this kind of social thinking. And that is the beauty of social psychology that I want to share with you. If there is a field that is very observational to what is happening in the world, that is social psychology. social psychology are not hilabtanon. We are just observant people, and we just want to understand what are the mechanics of certain things for us to better understand on how to deal with them. So finally, I would like we have reached no, to the end of this topic of this lesson. I want you to think as a personal reflection and think critically on the topic that we have discussed a while ago. So I want you to think of an example of a time when you may have committed one of the cognitive errors discussed a while ago. And what are the factors that lead you to have these cognitive errors? Is the availability? Is it because of salience? And what caused this error? What was the outcome of your use of the shortcut or heuristics? It's the danger when we don't think critically and we just use our automatic cognition that somehow we take shortcuts and make mistakes. So, as a personal reflection, I want you, as a psych major, to always think and assess things rather than just rely on our automatic cognition. We have reached the end of this presentation. Thank you so much. I hope that we have learned a lot about social cognition. So that's it. If ever you have questions about this topic, don't hesitate to let me know in our group chat. Thank you.